Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Cheyenne and I'm the Barbie that's a YouTuber. I don't know. So I just got back from watching the Barbie movie and I have to say, kind of like it. It was actually funny, not gonna lie. Usually on my channel, if I was gonna make a video on feminism, capitalism, and unrealistic beauty standards, I would have had to do 3 different videos. But because of this Barbie movie, I get to do all in one. So I broke up this video into 3 parts. One would be the history of Barbie, the second is history of feminism, and the third is the movie. So if you really want to just hear the movie part, feel free to skip forward. So I want to talk about why I would even go watch a Barbie movie, because if you had told me a year ago that there was going to be a live action Barbie movie and if I was going to go see it, it would be a hard no. Mostly because like all of the recent live action movies have been quite terrible. Like Lion King. It just being a Barbie movie wouldn't have been enough for me to want to go watch it. But I also didn't know that there had never been a Barbie movie like this before. I don't know, I think I just assumed that like in one of the millions of cartoon Barbie movies they've had, it would have been like a remake of one of them, but this was actually really different. The first way that I realized the Barbie movie was coming out was when I heard the Nicki Minaj Ice Spice song, which goes so hard. And I love Nicki Minaj, so like obviously I was like, whoa, there's a Barbie movie? That's cool. But like didn't really think much of it because like sure, the Barbie movie would get Nicki Minaj to do it because, you know, her fans are Barbies. Like, doesn't mean I'm gonna go watch a Barbie movie. And then the next thing I saw was like this whole wall in Aldo's shoes full of like Barbie shoes and like Barbie accessories. And I was like, wow, like that's heavy marketing. Heavy marketing. But still, like not enough to make me intrigued to watch the movie. So it wasn't really until I was watching The Bachelorette and I saw that like every time they go to commercial, they play like that 15-minute Barbie ad, which is like a picture of one of the characters and like who it is and then like something about the Barbie character. So that's when I realized how many people were in this movie, like famous people, and I was like, oh, like if America Ferrera is in the movie, it's probably not terrible. And if Will Ferrell's in the movie, it's probably gonna be funny. So like watching all of the commercials for the Barbie movie on The Bachelorette kind of got me interested in it. And then I watched the trailer and it had that part in it where it's like, if you hate Barbie, this movie's for you. And if you like Barbie, this movie's for you. And I didn't really know which category I landed in, which just intrigued me even more. So when I watched like all of the versions of the trailer, it kind of like was really evident that this was like a find yourself kind of story, which like is whatever for a Barbie movie. Like, of course Barbie's gonna find herself, like what else is Barbie gonna do in a movie? So the trailers didn't give away too much about the movie or like what Barbie necessarily finds out about herself, but like everything that I was watching kept saying like a Greta Gerwig movie, and I was like, who is this person? So I looked her up and she did Little Women, which is like a really great movie about like 4 sisters in like old-time England and how they struggle with being independent women in a society that doesn't really allow for that. So like I would watch that movie with my mom and my sister when it came out, like around Christmas time, and I really enjoyed it. The characters were so like detailed and developed, and this conflict was like, the conflict really expressed each character's personality, and I really appreciated like the directing of that movie. So to find out that that director had done the Barbie movie, I was like, oh, okay, this might actually be a movie worth watching. Greta Gerwig has a history of creating and directing movies with really complicated female heroines, and like she has a lot of like critical acclaim for the movies that she's created, like Little Women and Lady Bird. So like that made me interested to watch the movie, but like I think I was a little naive in thinking that she was gonna bring that level of complexity to the Barbie movie, because I feel like the characters just didn't really allow for that. When I decided I was gonna make a video about the Barbie movie, I decided I probably should learn about the history of Barbie. So the first Barbie came out in 1959 by Mattel. So the co-founders running Mattel back in the day were a husband and wife couple, and Ruth Handler is the one who created Barbie. But she didn't really like create it. So as co-founders of Mattel, they've been really successful developing toys for children. And one day Ruth was watching her daughter play, and her daughter's name is Barbara, which she used to create the name Barbie. So she was watching her daughter play with these dolls, and like back then the only dolls available for girls to play with were like baby dolls. So the only thing that girls could play as was mothers, which is obviously like very limiting in a sense of like self-expression. But Barbara had a brother named Ken, who the Ken doll is named after, which is a little weird because the real Barbie and Ken are brother and sisters, but the dolls are like dating. So I don't really know what she was playing at there, but that's fine. So Ruth was watching Ken play with his figurines, and they were like superheroes or like military soldiers. So the boys had more ranges of self-expression with their toys than girls did, and she felt like, why wouldn't a girl want to play with a figurine that looked like their adult self? So the story goes, Ruth and her family go on vacation to Switzerland, and they find this like figurine in Switzerland. And Ruth thinks, oh my god, this is like the perfect thing to base Barbie, what would be Barbie, off of. The only problem with this figurine is that it was not literally a sex doll, but like basically a doll of a sex figure. Okay, so the doll that Ruth based Barbie off of is called the Lily doll. This doll was the figurine version of this character that existed in a German comic strip. And this character, Lily, was like a gold digger, and she would go after men in these comic strips. The doll was literally like a seductress, which is why she looks like this. Okay, so anyways, Ruth takes this doll back from her Switzerland vacation, she brings it back to America, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna like rework this doll and like make it into what would be Barbie. But she doesn't like make too many changes to the doll. She just basically like buys the rights, I think, and then just starts selling the doll. So when she tried to sell the doll, like at the time, all of the toy purchasers, people that were like their job to buy toys to put into the toy stores, like they were men. And they were not really comfortable with the fact that there was this small female version of a figurine that had boobs that were supposed to sell to young girls like that. They just couldn't wrap their mind around that. So initially, like Barbie like didn't do well. Ruth tried really hard to bring Barbie to market. And it wasn't until she did like real customer surveys and like marketing research almost, that there was this little girl who was playing with Barbie, and her mom just remarked that like, oh, I've never seen my daughter be so soft. She was always been so tomboyish. Like it was almost as if the Barbie and the little girl playing with the Barbie allowed her mom to see the daughter that she wanted to see. So like the daughter playing with Barbie made the daughter more like Barbie, and the mom was happy with that result. So that's when it clicked for Ruth that like Barbie can't be marketed to these toy purchasers. It was really that the moms had to see the value in their little daughters playing with this figurine. So Barbie launched in 1959, and her first outfit was this black and white striped swimsuit. But like when we think about what was happening in America in 1959, we kind of like tip into the 60s, which was like the beginning of a pretty crazy, tumultuous social upheaval. So over the years, Barbie has gotten a lot of criticism by feminists or by other people just because of what they believe Barbie portrays or embodies. So this wouldn't really be a Barbie movie review without kind of explaining feminism, the history of feminism, and where we are today with it. So this by no means will be like an exhaustive review of the history of feminism. It's just kind of enough to set the scene for this movie. So the first wave of feminism started right before World War I. So at the time, there was a lot of talk about the end of slavery. There was a lot of talk about equal rights for Black people. So there was a lot of talk among women that if Black people were to get equal rights, then women should also get equal rights. So right before World War I, a lot of women in Western countries gained the right to vote. So the movement kind of fizzled out because of like the war, and then the 20s, and then the depression in the 30s, and then the war again in the 40s, World War II. So during World War II, when a lot of the men were like in battle, it was the women back home who like stepped up into those like manufacturing jobs to like create weapons for the soldiers, harvest food for the soldiers, create clothing for them. So like that was the first time that it was acceptable for women to leave the house and work. But when the war ended and the men came back home, like there was a very conscious push to get women back into the house. Like they were no longer welcomed in the workforce. That was for all the men coming home to have jobs to go to, and women had to be content working in the home because like that's where you came from. That's where you were before the war, so you kind of had to go back. So there was a concerted effort to make sure that everyone knows their place. This was a society that had very clear gender roles, and despite the freedoms that women experienced and might have enjoyed during the World War II, when the men came home, they had to fall back in line. So this is the world that Barbie is coming out in, right? Like she comes out in this bathing suit, she's looking hot, she's looking curvaceous. These girls are meant to play with her and imagine themselves as a housewife. One of the other Barbies that came out right after was Barbie in her wedding dress, right? So like girls are supposed to play with these dolls to aspire to be a wife, to aspire to be attractive to men. So the 60s come around and you have like the hippie movement, the civil rights movement, feminism wave 2, and the sort of event that kind of catalyzed into the second wave of feminism was this book written by Betty Friedan in 1963. So the book was called The Feminine Mystique, and basically what she says is like, if you're a woman that is a stay-at-home mom and you're married, like it's okay to want more. It's not wrong to love your husband and love your children, but also want more for yourself. right? Because a lot of the cultural expressions of femininity at that time was like, you find your happiness in your family. If your family doesn't look right, if it doesn't look like this nuclear family that we see on TV, like you're doing something wrong and you need to fix it. So this book was kind of like giving room for women to want more, to desire more, to want to be more than what they've been allowed to be so far. So the first wave feminism was focused on getting the right to vote. Second wave feminism was focused on equal rights under the law. So a lot of laws had passed at that time to give women the right to be independent, right? Like before second wave feminism, like it was illegal to give a woman a credit card when she was married. Like she couldn't get loans to buy a house or a car on her own. Like her husband had to sign for her. Like it was very legal to discriminate against women. And the 60s is also the time when the birth control became available. So like this was the first time in like history where women could control when they have children, right? Like, so this was the first time when women could like, no, I'm gonna like take control of my own body. I'm gonna have kids when I wanna have kids. And in the meantime, I'm gonna focus on my career, my independence, and building myself up outside of creating a family and being a mom and a wife. Second wave feminism was really successful in getting those rights for women under the law. And it kind of fizzled out towards the 70s and 80s. And now we kind of see a resurgence of feminism. No one can really decide like when this third wave feminism has started. But definitely around the Me Too era, when you start having women like talk about, yes, we have equal rights under the law, but we're still being discriminated against in these ways. And third wave feminism is really focused on equal rights for women, no matter their race or religion. A lot of the criticism for past feminist waves have been that it only benefited white women. So this third wave is trying to be all encapsulating. All right, so what did I really think of this movie? So I decided at the beginning, it was funny. I'm not gonna lie, it was actually funny. Was it like the best Greta Gerwig movie? Obviously not. Like this is not really her movie. Like it's Mattel's movie. Very clearly it was Mattel's movie. Like I felt at times like I was watching a history lesson on Mattel, because I feel like there was characters in that movie that didn't need to be there, but they were there because Mattel wanted you to know about the Barbies that they had tried that failed, you know? Like, so I don't know if they felt like that was like an authentic move on their part, like, oh, like we're a corporation, but we're being authentic because like, look at all our failures. At no point in this movie will you ever be confused about what kind of movie it is. Like it's a Mattel movie about Mattel and Barbie, right? Like it's not like they're going for an Oscar here. The whole premise of the movie is like how Barbie is used for imaginative play. Imaginative play is about how children use toys to express themselves. Like they get to develop their identity and develop like how they would react to certain situations based on how they play with their dolls and the scenarios they come up with their dolls. And this movie was like very, very aware of what Barbies are used for. And they're very explicit about this because they say when they're describing Barbieland, like Barbies believe that because they're created, because girls can be whoever they want to be with a Barbie, that there's no need for feminism because they've already accomplished everything they want to accomplish. So like you're seeing Barbies as lawyers, as president, as Nobel Prize winners, as authors, and like they're all very happy before each other. They say hi Barbie to like every single Barbie that you pass. It was honestly very striking because she goes through all of Barbieland and you don't see a man. It's just Barbies. And when you see Ken, he's like very much, I'm not gonna get into Ken. The other thing about this movie that makes it a history lesson on Mattel was that they brought in a character to represent Ruth, the founder of Barbie. They even like talk about her problems with the IRS, and I'm like, you guys don't have to do Ruth like that. Like, I didn't need to know that about Ruth for this Barbie movie to be successful. But again, like I feel like them being transparent about their past failures, like I don't know if they feel good about that, but like it wasn't, like it didn't need to be a part of the story. Like I paid to watch a Barbie movie and instead I got a history lesson on Mattel. Okay, so now to talk about like actual Barbie. So the character herself, like she goes on this like find yourself journey. So they kind of start off with this scene of like 2001 Space Odyssey, where did that scene need to be in the movie? No, but it kind of paid homage to the first Barbie. And then Greta did it in a way that like relates to the movie. So I feel like she did a good job in integrating something that Mattel probably forced down her throat into the movie. So the storyline for Barbie was very interesting to watch, only because like you're going into this movie knowing that like young girls use Barbie as like the epitome of beauty standards, and that like women want to be like Barbie because that's what they grew up knowing as beautiful. And so like the fact that Barbie finishes her story wanting to be human, it's almost like Mattel is like paying homage to women. They're like, you always wanted to be like Barbie, but look, Barbie wants to be like you. So when Barbie's in Barbieland, she's being played with properly, you can say. Like, people are imagining their best selves by playing with Barbie, and so her life is perfect. But it's not until the person playing with her starts to think about like the depressing parts of life that Barbie then starts to change, right? And that's how the movie starts off. Like, Barbies are only Barbies in Barbieland because of the humans that are playing with them in the real world. But then that kind of just like falls apart when like Ken comes back to Barbieland with the patriarchy, and the Barbies just do what Ken wants, and they're no longer like, their lives are no longer dictated by the people that play with them in the real world. So I feel like that's like a break in the storyline, right? Like, they just stopped caring about what happened in the real world because Ken came back. So that was kind of like a little bit of a lapse in the story. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but I did. I thought Barbie's character arc in the story was like all right. She starts to have thoughts, she starts to have depressing thoughts, and she's no longer like fit for Barbieland, so she has to go to the real world to figure out who is the human that's playing with her with sad thoughts and like make them happy so she can come back to her normal life in Barbieland, right? And like, she goes to like the school and she finds the teenager that she thinks is the one playing with her, and like this random person comes up to her and just like, oh, you don't want to speak to that girl, like she's gonna rip you apart. And then she goes speaks to the girl, and the girl rips her apart. And like, I feel like this is emblematic of the movie, right? Like, there were parts in the movie where like Mattel was like, okay, do your worst, like just say whatever you want to say about Barbie and what she means. And like, it was no longer like movie dialogue. It was like, how do I cram 70 years of feminist like anger into 15 seconds of dialogue? That happened multiple times in the movie where like they just kind of like broke with the dialogue and the flow, and they were like da -da -da -da, and then back into the movie, you know? Like, I was just like, okay, that was a little forced, but like, thanks for giving a contrarian view on Barbie. Like, and it was also very interesting to see Barbie come back to Barbieland and like see how Ken has like poisoned it with the patriarchy, and she just kind of like gives up. Like, you know, she's a little resistant to it at first. She doesn't just like fall over for Ken the way that all the other Barbies did, but like, she did just like plop on the floor and wanted to like close her eyes until it was over, which was like not very Barbie-like. Like, when you look at how she was at the beginning of the movie, like she was very independent, she didn't need Ken at all, and then as soon as Ken had a little power, she was just like, okay, this is where I call it quits. I don't know if it was like a girl power moment where they were gonna work with the weird Barbie, and the mother and daughter and Barbie together were gonna like fix this problem, but I just like, if Barbie was supposed to be like empowering figure, like she really crumbled at the patriarchy, which like, when you think about it, the message of Barbie is like, you can be whoever you want to be, but then in the movie she just like crumbles when she's faced with the patriarchy. So I'm not like another movie flaw. Like, I don't really understand why they just let that happen. I mean, I guess for the sake of the flow, like the conflict, like something had to give, but that wasn't cute. She was really defeated. Okay, so let's talk about Ken. Ryan Gosling did a great job playing Ken, and so did Simu Lee. Shout out to the Canadians. So what I really liked about the Ken character played by Ryan Gosling was his socialization, right? So like, when you first meet him on the beach, he's like a shell of like what you think a man would be in a movie. Like, we're always shown men who are like very confident in themselves, they know who they are, they know what they want, but like, it was very obvious that like Ken wanted Barbie, but he wasn't confident in his ability to land Barbie, even though he was her like long-term, casual, no commitment, distant boyfriend. So I really like how he was always vying for Barbie's attention, and then when he got to the real world, he like instantly knew that like he was being treated differently, and it was because he was a man, and he just like ate it up. He was like, give me all of the patriarchy, give me all the books, give me all the clothes. Like, he was here for it. Barbie got kidnapped by Mattel, and he was like, I gotta go find cowboys. He loved it so much, he went back to the Barbieland to tell all the Kens that the patriarchy is what's up. So I mean, it was nice, right? Like, I felt nice watching a movie with a male character that was so vapid and so empty, because you don't see that often, and it was very like, it was no, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but it was just like, you knew it didn't fit, right? You knew that it was like not reality, because that's not how men are represented in film. But it was also like, it just made me, like, it made me think about how women are represented in film, and like how different Barbie is represented based on other women, and how like, it just makes you hyper aware of those like norms of representation of men and women in film. But one thing I did want to bring up about Ken's character, the Ryan Gosling Ken, was that he was either for Barbie or against Barbie, right? Like, he didn't really get to a point as a character where he could just be supportive of Barbie. So he was either like vying for Barbie's attention, desperate for her love, like empty without her, to being the patriarchal man, wanting all the attention on him because he's a man and just being like macho. So towards the end, Barbie kept telling him like, you need to just be Ken. And like, he was like, oh yeah, I'm just Ken. But like, we don't see him be Ken and be supportive of Barbie, right? It was like, either he's chasing after Barbie or Barbie's a threat to him. So when we talk about, is Barbie a feminist movie? Like, I would say like, that's where it kind of lacks, in the sense that like, I feel like right now the current discussion about feminism is that it's anti-man, and like if Ken could have been a supportive Ken to Barbie, then it could have been like a representation of what a male feminist looks like. Okay, so now for the mother and daughter. So America Ferrera is probably like my favorite character in this movie, and mostly because I feel like she was just perfectly casted. Like, the rants that she went on in this Barbie movie were very similar to the rants that she went on when she was in the Superstore. And also in the Superstore, she had a teenage daughter that like hated her. So like, to see that again in this movie, I was like, I don't know why you didn't just cast the same girl from the Superstore, but like, whatever. No, but I really like this duo. Like, it was very clear that the mother and daughter duo were like the ones that hate Barbie, the ones that love Barbie. Obviously, like, the mom loved Barbie and the daughter like was indifferent to Barbie, borderline hated her. I think it was interesting that Mattel chose to like not mess with Gen Z. They were like very aware that like, you know, Gen Z doesn't play with Barbies. Like, we get it, we're not gonna mess with that. Like, it's the mom that plays with Barbies. And she felt like when her daughter was a child, she could imagine herself playing with her daughter, playing with the Barbies together. But like, now that her daughter hates her, she's like, oh, like, depressing Barbie, like thoughts of death Barbie. So there was still that imaginative play going on even in her older age. But I also think that was very fitting for the mom to be the one that loved Barbie, because she also was the one that snapped Barbie out of the patriarchy. So again, like, America Ferrera's speech at that climax of the story, where she's talking about like the dichotomies of being a woman and how tough it is, and that if Barbie as a doll finds it tough to be a woman, like, you can't even imagine what it's like for a real woman to have like those feelings and difficulties. So like, I felt like that speech was really good, but it also was like very forced, right? Like, it wasn't like a natural part of the dialogue in the movie that was like, oh, like, wow, like this is a very deep scene. It was like, okay, like, again, like, they're gonna go off and talk about like what Barbie means to the world, and like then they're gonna come back to the movie, right? But like, it was important to have that in the movie, and I really liked that it was like becoming conscious of the cognitive dissonance of being a woman is what snaps the Barbies out of participating and supporting the patriarchy. And like, I really resonate with that, because I would try to do that with my YouTube channel. Like, I truly believe that if people really understood like cultural studies and like how, like the way, like how the world is fabricated the way that it is today, like you wouldn't feel the pressure that you feel to like keep up with the Joneses, essentially, right? Because it's all consumerism, it's all capitalism, it's not being human. Like, you don't need to want to buy things or want to express yourself through things to be human. This is like something that's given to us as a culture. So like, I resonated with that part of the movie, because it was like, you don't have to participate in the patriarchy if you don't feel like it's doing anything for you. Once you understand like how crazy it is to be a woman and like want to be a mom but also want to have a career and try to handle those two and juggle those two without feeling guilty, like, that is being a woman. And like, how you handle that outside of the patriarchy and outside of the like male gaze is what it means to be a woman. So that was probably my favorite part of the movie. My least favorite part of the movie was like that scene with Barbie and Ruth at the end. Like, Barbie wasn't even wearing pink, bro. She wasn't even wearing pink. Like, this was a brand new Barbie. She's in yellow, she's talking to Ruth. They're in like, I don't know, like this twilight zone, like almost heaven, but not really heaven, but also not reality. And like, Barbie's like, I don't think I want to be just imaginative. I don't think I want to just be ideas of women in their heads. Like, I want to be a real girl. I was just sitting there thinking to myself, like, what kind of Pinocchio nonsense is this? Like, I'm like, I thought this was like a find yourself story, not like a Pinocchio story. Like, but again, like I mentioned this in the beginning, like I felt like it was Mattel playing homage to women. Like, you spent your childhood wanting to be Barbie and now Barbie wants to be like you. And then they had this montage of like women videos, and I was like, who are these women? Like, I want context. What am I watching right now? It was just like women smiling, just being happy. And then Ruth Hadler was like, if you want to be a real girl, just feel. Feel. That's how you become a real person. Like, we talked about needing to know the cognitive dissonance of being a woman, but like, if you actually want to be a woman, you just need to feel what? Happiness from the videos of happy women. Like, what are we doing here? That was very disappointing. I didn't like that scene at all. I think they ended it with like Barbie coming back to the real world and like permanently living in the real world. So that was the other thing that was confusing to me. Like, Barbie kept expressing like, I want to be a real girl, I want to live in the real world. Like, you had no problems getting to the real world. Like, none. You just rollerblade into it. Like, you could have just stayed in the real world if that's what you wanted. Like, I don't know. Just lapses. There was lapses. So the last character that I want to talk about is my boy Will Ferrell with the president of Mattel. So, I mean, his character was, it was good, you know? Like, he was just the corporate Mattel, wanted to keep Barbie literally in a box, didn't want to like do anything to hurt the brand. I think America Ferrera at the end was like, oh, like, I want to suggest like a normal Barbie, just an ordinary Barbie that's a mom that's just trying to feel good about herself. And he was like, absolutely not, like, that's terrible. And then the guy behind him was like, actually, that's gonna make a lot of money. He's like, okay, perfect, let's do it right now, you know? Like, just like pure money, pure corporate capitalism. And it was just something that you needed in a movie about Barbie. So I'm happy for Will. The last thing that I want to bring up in the Barbie movie was the diversity of Barbies. So again, it was great to see like Kens and Barbies on both sides from different races. Loved that. They had complex characters. Loved that. But like, the main Barbies were white and blonde, right? So like, she called herself stereotypical Barbie because like she's like the default, right? So like that kind of like continues to support and plays into the fact that like Caucasian features are the default of beauty, right? And like everyone is like beautiful based off the default. I think it would have been like really crazy and really powerful for Mattel to pick like a Latinx Barbie and Ken, because like it was America Ferrera who was playing with the doll to begin with, right? So like, if America Ferrera was playing with a doll that looked like her, that could have been a stronger message, but they went with Margot Robbie, who did a great job. But I'm just saying, if we're really talking about diversity, that's how I would have played it. But that's just me. So all in all, I liked the movie. I thought it was funny. It did what I thought it would do. You know, I don't think they were trying to get an Oscar. I don't think they will get an Oscar. I actually feel like Greta Gerwig like took what she was given and made a movie that's worth watching. The fact that she could take something that was like seeping in consumerism and capitalism. So the fact that she could like make quirks about it, make quirks about capitalism and consumerism, like make comments about feminism, like she did a really good job in writing the film and directing the film. I think the characters were also really good, but like, again, not her best movie, but she did really well with what she was given. I'll give her that. Okay, so there was a lot of obviously famous people in this movie, but I don't feel like there was chemistry between them. But it just wasn't, it was giving like everyone was just picked and they were like, let's get as many stars as possible. But like, did they necessarily like get along? Like, I don't know. That again, it seemed forced. I just think like the level of marketing for this movie, like I really hope it pays off for Mattel. Like, I know I saw it, I would go see it again. Like, I don't have a problem watching it again. But like, God, like so much money, the brand sponsorships, the songs, like, oh my God, just, I've never seen a movie marketed so hard before. And like, I'm not gonna buy Barbie after this. So like the only money you're gonna make off of this is just movie tickets. I don't know. Good for them. I don't know. Okay, so that concludes my review of the Barbie film. Let me know what you guys think about my reviews. I don't do movie reviews often, but I do watch a lot of movies and TV shows, so it is something that I can do if you guys think that I'm like good at it. So let me know in the comment sections. I make videos about tech, society, culture, and the media, so if those are things that you're interested in, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button if you made it this far. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.